I'm calling in today. This is Kate.
Good morning, Kate. So far from your committee, you have you and Laura, it looks like. But folks that are not on the committee meeting a couple weeks ago now, a week and a half ago, I guess, we had, for those of you who weren't there, we did have at least 5 companies show up that expressed some interest. Some of them have followed up with some questions. There weren't a lot of questions in the follow-up. Whatever we got, we posted on the website. Today is the day, I think at 2 o'clock today, they're due. And they're coming in by email. So at 2 o'clock, I'll take a look. I haven't seen anything come in yet. I'm guessing that they'll all come in right at 2 o'clock. And then on the 24th, the delegates will meet and review those proposals. And also, you'll see under new business, when you get to that, I have invited, your request, have invited Brian Lippold to this meeting to talk about how he might be able to help us through that process.
At that meeting, the towns also, really, the plantations brought up that they wanted to make some adjustments to the maps that were in the original county. I don't know what our proposal. Did you get anything back from the towns on that?
I did. Everything I got, I believe, has been posted on the website. I think Dallas and Sandy River responded. They had, drawn on some of their tax maps.
Okay, so any of the people who are responding to the RFP can see it on the website is how that is working?
Yep.
Was consolidated on the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is it on the website? I haven't looked yet, but sometimes the website is a little difficult.
Pretty
Joe?
sure. Yep, it's in the links.
Okay.
About halfway down the page. I haven't looked since last week. So I think they're green. I'm colorblind. They're either green or brown, but there are some hyperlinks about 1/3 of the way from the left. So there's RFP questions and answers 317.
On the front page of the.
It's right on the front page. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I'll look. I'm sure I can find it.
Did we have any time to talk about the interlocal agreement, or did that not happen?
Well, it's interesting question you ask. We got into it a little bit, and I think a little bit was plenty, probably too much, honestly, because we had a number of folks in the room. One of the questions that was asked, and I answered it, was, something about, is the town looking to fund this entirely themselves? And the way I answered it was, we're looking for proposals from anybody that's interested in building a network. So I didn't want to corner the towns into something that maybe somebody else had a different idea. The whole purpose of the RFP was to say what's out there for ideas. So once you get into the interlocal, and it did come up, the funding, the bonding came up and so forth, but it really wasn't the appropriate time to talk about it, as it turns out. And so, yes, it came up briefly, but no, we did not get into a lot of detail, which is good, I think, at this point, because we really want to see what the proposals look like.
Correct. I see your point. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that, because they might come up with something that's not something we have to do, something like that, like the interlocal or bonding or whatever the situation is. Okay.
Yep.
Any other comments on broadband?
Can I?
All right.
Yes.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
I was searching for the copies of the marked up maps on the homepage, and I'm not able to locate them.
I assume Joe's looking. I can't see. Sorry.
Yeah, it looks like Joe's looking.
Okay.
Must be tough to run a meeting when you can't even see the people.
I can't see the people. I didn't think you wanted me there today, though. I've had the case of the sniffles the last few days, so I didn't want to sneeze on anybody with my spring thaw allergies kicking in.
We appreciate that, Kate.
Yeah.
So if you go again to the items that are hyperlinks on the homepage, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, item 6, bullet point 6, where it says broadband maps. This is it. All it is the Sewell. These are the Sewell maps. Did you find those? Brian?
Yeah, I guess that's all of the maps for Franklin County. I thought,
Well, there were some markups. I guess they're not in that document. If they're not there, then they're probably not on the site.
yeah, I don't see any marked up maps.
Okay.
Do you guys have them in the town office, Joe, the changes that they made?
So there were a couple of emails that came. I thought they had been posted on there. I'll have to double check. I don't want to take a ton of time right now to do it, but
All right.
I'll double check.
If you don't mind, when you locate those, if you could email me a copy.
Sure. I'll send them to everybody.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And my understanding from talking to Rangeley Plantation yesterday, they're still working on it. They had actually problems printing them in color, so they couldn't even tell what it was before.
All right, so we're gonna go to banners next. And Joe, I haven't talked to either Dawn or I have no updates on banners. Do you?
Not really, except that I do have some literature that Keith gave me the other day. Keith's on vacation, by the way. But he gave me some things before he took off. And my thought on this is, he and I want to spend some time with him, maybe narrowing it down to a few options and then talk with Dawn about that and then bring it to you with, 2 or 3 options of what we think, just to kind of streamline the process. Any thoughts on that?
Sounds perfect.
Okay. That's all I have on that.
All right, on the TIF, we did have the vote on TIF. It did pass. It was not a huge turnout, but at least some people did come and vote. Any comments about TIF after the vote? Or, I mean, some people were still misinformed, but that's okay. I mean, I think people did come and vote.
I was happy, though a low turnout, that it was decisive. It wasn't close. The official tally was 38 to 21. We would have thought it would have been like 110 to 27 or something, but that's still good. Joe and the town sent the completed application that goes to DECD to our attorney, Alyssa Tibbetts. She's reviewing that today. She was out of the office on Friday, and that was sent out on Tuesday. So if there's no hiccup, it'll go straight to DECD this week. If there's anything that needs anything, we'll know probably by tomorrow, but everything's full steam ahead. And I'm excited about that. And then we have some of the supplemental or supporting TIF documents for the town review coming up. As you are aware, Shelley, we have another draft of the local TIF policy guidelines that we put together. And we have credit enhancement and other TIF documentation to sort of supplement once we get our approval at the state, so we could utilize the TIF and figure out what we may have for revenues later this summer.
Sounds good. Joe, the only question I guess I would have is, once we get this thing all in place, is just to make sure the town, I assume you have mechanisms to go ahead and figure out which bucket the monies go to and how to do this financially.
Yeah, most of it's in the development plan, and if it's not in there, it'll be in the policy that Daryl referred to a minute ago. As you're talking about the projects, which projects we take on.
Well, not just the projects, but just how you guys, account for the money and what doesn't go to the county and, how the mechanism works for you
Yes.
internally to,
Yeah, we actually built, and the board has approved this, an account. It's called TIF, Tax Increment Financing District. So it's got the account and then the sub accounts that are associated with it. So we do have the accounting structure, and the pending piece is the policy that Daryl had referred to. So yes, we're ready to go on this end.
Do we have an application yet?
None that I'm aware of. Daryl, have you seen anything yet?
No, nothing official yet. And we probably won't have it until once we get it approved by DECD. And I expect the turnaround for the DECD approval would be in May. Usually it's about a 30-day process. And then we'll possibly by the end of April, we'll know. And then we'll probably have an application or two later this summer, I would expect.
But we're not even gonna have any money in it yet, Daryl.
Well, we won't know. People could still apply, but we won't know what the money situation is going to be until we set the tax commitment at the end of the summer and we figure out some of those questions will be answered with what our county and school formula tax commitments are, what we will have clear to actually put in the TIF budget. And as Joe said earlier, it's all in the development program, so it's a question of what we have. And the first year is not going to be a lot of money. It takes probably the 3 years to build up, but we may do a little bit better than what we anticipated from the financial projections.
is there any more conversation about TIF? All right, so the next thing I'd like to go on to is signs. And Joe, I'm seeing the snow melt, so I started thinking
Okay.
about the signs. And where we're at with the actual building of them. Do you have all the materials you need? Are we, when do we foresee that they could start being installed?
So what I know is the materials are here, they're undercover. Keith has met with Larry Johansson. He's been up to go through the process. That is about what I know, and he's on vacation, so I don't have any more details about that at this point, but I will, by your next meeting, have an update for you.
I assume come May, you're pretty busy with road projects, so that's why I was, starting to think about this. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. We'll put that on for the next agenda meeting.
Mhm.
Any other questions or concerns about signs? All right, we're gonna go to new business, and we have Brian on the phone, and I think Charlie still.
Yes, you do.
Okay,
So Brian, as the board or as the committee requested last time you met, I reached out to Brian. I actually talked with Charlie first and made sure he was okay if I reached out to Brian, and he was fine. So I've talked to Brian a couple of times on the phone. Brian did attend the opening, or not the opening, but the pre-proposal meeting. So he's up to speed on that. He did send, and I don't think any of you have this, he did send a proposal on Friday, but I'll let he and Charlie kind of talk about what a consultant's role would be in this process, in terms of the RFPs, opening the RFPs, and following through if you do make a selection. So I don't know, Charlie, if you want to do more of an intro, or if Brian, you just want to take it from there, it's up to you.
Thank you, Joe. No, let's hear from Brian on how this arrangement is going to work.
All right. So as I understand it, the sort of the scope of work is to assist with the evaluation and analysis of the bids from a technical, operating, and sort of telecom business perspective, to make sure that you all have the benefit of some industry experience when you're evaluating these bids. And then after you select a bidder that you want to negotiate with to assist in that negotiation with that contract evaluation. Again, from an industry perspective, so that you're equipped to negotiate with these providers. And then beyond that, anything else that you may need assistance with that isn't envisioned within either one of those buckets. So if you needed some mapping work updated, or, you know, any other miscellaneous information, maybe it's support for a town vote. You know, it's hard to define exactly what your needs are going to be. So, excuse me. We carved this out basically from the same type of work I'm doing for Charlie in the rest of Franklin County. And I think it's also beneficial to Charlie and the other communities in Franklin County, where we're hoping that this can become a template that can be replicated in other areas. So we're working on this type of a template with you. And then we're also working on a different template for Carthage, Wilton, Weld, and Temple, where their partner is Matrix, which I think, well, I know that you received a proposal from Matrix in the past. I don't know if they're going to be part of this bid evaluation or not, but that's sort of the sum of how I'm looking at the engagement here. So I'll open it up for questions.
Well, I guess we didn't see what you sent to Joe on Friday, but did you include some estimates or projections on how much it would cost?
Yes. And thought I had that up on my screen. Hold on.
Okay.
It's $150 an hour. And I thought that for the scope that I just defined, it would be in the $4,000 range. But again, if you only get 2 bids, you know, the level of effort is reduced.
Right. You've
So-
already looked at the consolidated proposal, right?
Yeah, I have, and presuming that it doesn't change, or assuming that they still come back and bid.
Right.
So, so it's essentially it's a time and expense type of an engagement, and I used the same rates that I've used with Franklin County for the last 3 years. So we're just carving it out.
Right. You said assuming they come back and bid, do you have some premonition that they might not be bidding?
Well, I do know that they were disappointed that you went out to RFP and still had their proposal posted on your website. So it gives all of the other bidders an advantage
Mm.
over Consolidated. So there is a possibility that they wouldn't come back and bid. So
Interesting.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, technically, we already have their offer, right? Why would they do it twice?
Because they have
Well,
to, it's on the
they-
guidelines of the RFP, right?
yeah, they need to resubmit under the guidelines of the RFP. And they may decide that they're going to come back with a different offer, given that all of their competition knows what their offer was.
Yeah.
So it's an odd process here that was sort of unfortunate.
I can see
Well-
why they'd be mad, I guess. So,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think unfortunate's a strong word, but I get the sentiment. The RFP should have happened at some point in the past procedurally. So it's a housekeeping thing that had to happen. The fact that it's on the website, it was talked about publicly here for months, so Yeah, but that bell has already been rung. So-
I'm not passing judgment. I'm just giving you the feedback that I've heard.
Right,
That's-
Yeah,
appreciate
I
that.
do have, thank you for the numbers. I think what we'll have to do is, I'm not quite sure how we're gonna go about this, Joe, and what our next process is on approvals, but we're obviously coming through in a quick time frame here, so we should talk about it soon. The other thing I had a question on, Brian and Charlie, is with the recovery, the new bill that was passed by the federal government. I thought they had put money in to the states for broadband. Do we have any updates on that?
Yes, so there is money in there for broadband for the state. Nobody is able to answer exactly how much is going to be in there, but I've heard estimates of anywhere between 30 and 130 million. And I think Senator King believes it'll be closer to 130 million.
Yes,
The individual towns are also getting, as I understand it, direct funding from the federal government that can be used for broadband.
So we go with, option A, and it's still, let's use the consolidated theory here. And we were gonna bond for the 2.5 million. We could potentially, instead of bonding for the 2.5 million, could we potentially go to the state for that 2.5, 3 million?
The way that the state is operating currently, you can pursue funds for areas that are currently
Under-
classified as unserved, or those areas that are less, that have speeds of less than 25/3. So that could be a significant portion of the road mileage. They award funds based on subscriber locations. So we would have to update, the mapping of what is available where, and determine through that process how much funding might be available through the state that you would compete for. When the mapping was completed, that was back in the fall of 2017, I believe. And Consolidated has upgraded a number of remote terminals and so forth since that time. So the speed information in that mapping is no longer valid. There is a grant round that's open currently, and they're anticipating another grant round opening in July. And that's for the $15 million bond that passed last year. There are, funding opportunities that will be coming up that the Rangeley area could qualify for a portion of. I think the advantage that you have if you were to go with the consolidated proposal that was submitted previously is, while you are bonding, they're paying principal and interest on the bond.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So that's almost better than grant funding, with the exception that then Consolidated is going to be adding an infrastructure fee to subscribers' invoices to help defray the cost of that principal and interest. So theoretically, if you had grant funding for a portion of the project, your principal and interest would be lower on the remaining amount, and therefore the infrastructure fee could be lower as a result. but there would still be an infrastructure fee.
Right.
And I did have that chat with Peggy Schaefer on that very subject. Brian, thank you.
I have a question on the mapping. When you did that into 2017, I forget whether Consolidated did give you any information or not. I know I felt like you went back and forth with them and they weren't giving you, and then they did or they didn't, and I can't remember if they did.
They would show us information, or back in 2017, I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but for the last 2 years, they've been showing us information, but not allowing us to publish it. And if we wanted to publish it, we'd have to sign an NDA saying we wouldn't publish it. So they give us anecdotal information, but Connect Maine, this last infrastructure round, has set up a different process whereby going with the mapping that they have, as inaccurate as it is, and there's one opportunity a year for a community or service provider to challenge the specifics of that mapping for your community. And in that challenge process, the Consolidated would have to come back and prove you wrong. And that's a way then that you can get the mapping that Connect Maine uses more accurate. And then that's the mapping that would be eligible for funding. Now we did that this last round. It was a problematic process. Most of the challenges were rejected, and we, Casco Bay Advisors, did get 2 challenges in that were accepted, and the incumbent providers did not challenge the challenge, which was interesting. So we're looking forward to the next round of challenge to redefine those maps.
Okay.
That's a convoluted answer to your question, but that's the best we got right now.
Yeah, and I think you know why I'm asking the question is that there's a lot of pushback from the plantations, and that they think that the mapping was not accurate, and they kind of have
I heard that on the last
Right.
call, and that was the first time I've heard that since we did the project. Now, recognize that when we did that project in 2017, it was really a desktop exercise. We did go out to identify where Consolidated had fiber and remote terminals, or where a cable system had infrastructure. Obviously, in your 4 communities, there's no cable system.
Right.
So we only went out and looked at fiber infrastructure. We didn't look at, is that real road really a road?
Right.
Is there power along that road? That wasn't part of the scope. So if the desktop mapping, essentially Google or Bing or what have you, showed a road there, we assumed there was a road.
Right.
And so that's why I'm looking forward to seeing the input from the
Right.
plantations, because that can have a difference in the overall analysis. Not
Right.
that it would affect Consolidated's
Exactly.
proposal, because they really didn't use that information for their proposal anyways. And all of the bidders, if they're going to bid on this project, should at a minimum go out and drive all the roads to see what they're going to be presented with if they do win the bid.
Right.
So it would be good to have the maps be accurate, but I'm not sure it has a significant if at all, any bearing on the RFP process.
Exactly, and that's kind of, I mean, I think that point needs to be made to the plantations, because Linda was all over that from Sandy River. I was like, we can't, how are these proposals going to be accurate? They don't even have accurate information. And I was like, well, what? They're not going off those. I mean, Consolidated's got accurate information. And I need that, I think that point needs to be made, and I know Rangeley Plantation has a feeling in their mouth that any proposal is going to be incorrect because those maps were incorrect.
I'd be happy to talk with anyone that has the question about the process and what the expectations should be. And in your RFP, I don't recall that you referenced those maps.
No,
So I can appreciate that they're disappointed that they're not accurate if they're not accurate.
right.
I think so. The 24th is our next review. So let's make sure that point is made on the 24th when we review the proposals.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
is that a public bid opening?
So the 24th is where the delegates are going to review these proposals. The proposals are due today at 2 via email,
All right.
I believe. I don't
But
have
the
that in front of me.
24th, but it is public also, right?
The 24th is public, yes, absolutely.
So all the people who are proposing are going to be on that call, as well as the delegates. So
They
we're
may
not really,
be.
we're not really reviewing it in front of them at that meeting, right?
You should not.
No. Or it seems to me that meeting is just, this is who proposed and this is their proposal, or what is the point of that meeting if everyone's going to be there?
Joe, is there an official bid opening today at 2 o'clock when it closes with you and or one of the select board or anybody?
I don't have that RFP in front of me. Hang on a second.
Traditionally, what you would do in a municipal setting or a government setting is you would have a bid opening date and time where you had government officials, town manager, and at least one other person witnessing the bid opening. Beyond that, and maybe acknowledging that we received a bid from company X or company Y, but you really aren't obligated to go into any details in the bid. And the bid evaluation is typically not a public process.
Yeah. It's just a
And
bid tabulation. You recognize
Right.
which bids came in with the amounts, and then it goes to you and the others to discern what this really means.
And while they are public documents, just for the evaluation process, typically you wouldn't do that in a public setting.
Right. So the way it's called out, and remember, we're in COVID, so we have allowed email submissions, and we also have a very shortened process, which plays into a couple of things here. So at 2 o'clock today, responses are due by email in confidence to my email address. The way we've got it set up, that proposals will be reviewed at 2 p.m. March 24th, and make a recommendation. So in parentheses, that says delegates and town manager. So that's, you folks can be there also. But that's, my understanding is that would happen, not with everybody in the room, not with all the people, the companies in the room, like you're discussing now or describing now. So the other thing.
So the Zoom meeting wouldn't be public on the meeting on the 24th should not be public.
The review should be done this way with the delegates.
Huh? Sorry.
The review
Right,
will
but
be
not-
done with the delegates and the town manager. So the meeting will open in public and then go review these things.
So
Okay,
the
so you're
session, you're going to go into executive session,
Well,
for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Right.
okay.
Yep.
So someone will wait for the public to leave.
Yep.
Okay.
I can share, we're in the process of running 2 other RFPs right now where we've received all the bids, and these are for towns. And we had a public bid opening, but no evaluation. And then the review committee, which would have been equal to your delegates and the town manager, all reviewed the bids. We had a review meeting just to discuss them. And then we moved into a phase where we set up individual meetings with the bidders to clarify the bids and ask questions and so forth. And after that process is over, the review committee will get back together and come up with their recommendation as to the bidder that they want to negotiate with, or they might say, you know what, with what we learned, we want to do something different, and we might go back out the bid. I mean, there's nothing to prevent.
And that's, I'm glad you brought that up, Brian. So one of the things that's on my mind in looking at this is, so in running parallel, and Shelley knows this because she's on the board. So I've got the budget, the referendum, the warrant, the draft warrant, all this stuff is running parallel with this, and the clock is ticking.
Right.
One of the reasons, and I mentioned this a minute ago, that this was an aggressive timeline and March 24th was in the mix is because April 5th is when the board is going to have their first public hearing on the referendum. So we have no article about broadband on the referendum. It's not there because we don't know what we're doing. The intent 2 months ago or a month and a half ago when we put this RP together was there's a Hail Mary pass that we may have something figured out for April 5th to talk about and maybe get on the June warrant, which would the drop dead for that is sometime in May. It's not April 5th, but that's kind of where we're at. And as Brian just said, you know, this process may not be as expedited as you know some would like it to be. I hate to say that because I know I've said it a couple times already, but and especially if we have, you know, hurt or insulted consolidated, which was not my intent, but you know, if some things are, you know, it may take more. I guess I want to prepare everybody. It may take more than another week or two to figure this out.
And on the flip side, you may only get one bid, and maybe it's only consolidated, and you're back on your aggressive. I just don't know what to expect.
Exactly. And that was kind of my thinking before the last meeting. I was like, it'll probably just be consolidated, but then we have five other people in the room. And I said, well, so I just want to prepare everybody for that. There is still a chance, a faint chance that we can make something happen on the June warrant, but we don't know really what the other plantations, you know, if they're on board with it or not at this point. So anyway.
So prior to, on the 22nd, you're gonna have all the bids in, and on the 24th.
No, I
there's gonna-
understand.
Oh, I guess we're over talking. Laura, on the 22nd, the bids are coming in. Can you hear me? I'm frozen,
Yes.
I think.
No,
Okay,
we can hear you.
okay. The 22nd, the bids are coming in, and the 24th is gonna be the opening of them. So the first time the delegates see that will be the 24th, not prior to the 24th. Is that correct?
That is correct. So they're coming to me today. I'll have a chance to organize them, get them prepared, get them in some order. I'll know what's there. And then on the 24th, they come in and then the delegates see them.
Okay, so Brian, on Brian's, if we go forward with using Brian as a consultant, what do we have to do, Joe? Go to the board and ask for money from the reserve account to be used for consulting? And when
Yes.
is the next board meeting?
April 5th.
So that would be after we might already want him to start. Is that? potentially?
Possibly. That's another thing that factors in here. If you open them, we will get them today. If you look at them for your first review on Wednesday, which is the 24th, you wouldn't have any authority to spend money for the consultant fees at that point. So you probably would want to talk about them for the first time on Wednesday, and it's probably a good time to talk about this with the delegates on Wednesday too, to see what their thoughts are on the consultant, and then make a recommendation. I think this committee, if you're interested in having a delegate, I mean, a consultant, you should make a recommendation to the select board this morning as a RREOC to use money from the Economic Development Reserve. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Sorry, my internet's going in and out here a little, so I missed a little bit of that, but I think what you're saying, if we want to use, you would like a recommendation, I am.
I think a recommendation to the select board to spend an amount not to exceed $4,000 for a consultant, telecommunications consultant, for the review of the RFPs. I think you're frozen, Laura.
How handle you take? I know I am. Can you hear me? at all?
Mm,
You're kind of echoing, Laura.
Sorry.
No, we're not able to understand you,
I
Laura.
don't know what to do. I chat.
Do chat, yeah.
Yeah, you can chat. We'll read it.
So should we reach out to Consolidated Communication just to, if they are upset with us, that we didn't mean anything by that, because we really want them to put their bid in?
I don't know, Joe, if that is a problem to do that during the RFP process. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I guess if I were going to call one, I'd want to call
Can you
everybody.
guys hear me now? Am I better? No.
A little bit.
I'd be happy to talk with Consolidated to see if they're planning to put in a bid or not. And sounds like at this stage, I can do that because I'm unaffiliated with what you're doing. And I talk with Consolidated multiple times a week on all kinds of projects. So I'm happy to do that.
You now have that liaison title.
Unofficially.
So,
I just feel
Laura,
that
have we-
their stuff is already all out there for us, and we've put it out publicly. I mean, that's not really fair to them either, but I just think that we should try to mend that fence.
I'll reach out to them and I'll report back to Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is my connection any better now?
A little bit. I just heard you okay. Are you talking? Yeah, no, Laura.
I'll go afterwards, okay, because I'm
Okay. The only thing I
on-
There was a recommendation out there to go with Brian at Casco to help with this RFP process, not to exceed 4,000. So making the recommendation as a motion and then seconding it and then approving it is the way to go.
correct, but we need Laura to be able to do that because she's our quorum.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
much better.
Okay, so it's my video issue. Okay, thank you, Charlie. I would like to make a motion that we write a letter that we recommend to the selectmen that we do I don't know how you want me to say it, not to exceed contract.
Engage services.
Yeah, with Casco Bay Advisors for not to exceed 4,000.
I second. All in
And-
favor? Or any discussion?
My only discussion was, are we now saying that the Rangeley is going to cover all of this and not the plantations?
Not necessarily, if it's not to exceed number. Then that would be, if we can talk to make sure. I mean, the 24th could come and consolidate, it could be the only thing, and we don't need to go forward at all, right? This is just kind of a placeholder to use this money. But let's say we did, and the delegates, we make our recommendation that we need to use this. I think Rangeley, as far as our economic development team goes, we really feel that we need an industry consultant to help us weed through the proposals, right? Which is why we're making this recommendation now. And that we would like all the plantations to participate in that consultant fee.
Correct.
So we'll make that bid on the 24th, but we're trying to do this, Joe, I assume for tonight,
This is for April 5th.
for April 5th.
So the motion was to recommend engage services with Casco Bay Advisors not to exceed $4,000 for the town of Rangeley only. Is that correct?
No, yeah,
And the motion was by Laura and Kate, you second that?
yep.
Okay. So now the vote.
All in favor?
Aye. Shelley?
Aye, Kate.
Do we, Brian, if, sorry. Aye.
So that's 3 ayes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, it
Yes,
just keeps
she
cutting
wrote
out.
chat, yes.
I'm just trying to write it for the minute.
Now we know why we need to get our internet, huh?
I'm on an iPad and a phone, so I can tell you where I'm at right now.
Oh, Lord.
All right, so did we approve the minutes for March 8th and February 22nd?
We approved March 8th. That was what was on my agenda. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we also need to do February because that was carried over.
That was was that me writing that or you?
I wrote that.
Oh, okay, that's the one you sent earlier.
Yep, I sent you two minutes for February 22nd and March 8th.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve the minutes for February 22nd.
Second.
Laura, are you still there?
I'm trying.
In favor, she's in favor. That's
I
all
am
is in
too.
favor. Okay,
Now, do we have to revisit March 8th because I wasn't on the call yet? To have a 3 vote?
oh, I thought you were, so I assumed you were saying yes, because I didn't hear anything.
No,
Laura-
sorry.
Yeah, Laura made the motion, I seconded. So all in favor for the review of the minutes for March 8th?
All right. Aye.
Aye. And Laura, I assume it's still a
Can you all-
yes.
Aye, now?
Okay. All right. Sorry, I just want to get the housekeeping stuff done.
The question,
folks-
Laura, for you is the 24th. We won't be able to contract with Brian, and just to make sure, Brian, you're clear about this, apparently is till after the April 4th meeting.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm still going to attend on the 24th if you don't mind.
Would love it. Thank you.
All right. And I apologize. I've got to drop off and we'll talk to you on the 24th.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
You.
All right, so the next, any more questions? We've gone through the entire agenda. I have no
Can
new
you hear me now?
business.
Okay.
Go ahead again. No, Laura, I can't hear you.
Okay.
All right. Laura. She's trying. Okay, she's gonna talk to me after, but I need to make a motion to end the meeting and schedule the next meeting. So the next meeting, let me see, do you have a calendar? What's 2 weeks? Is that April?
April 5th.
April 5th at 9 AM is our next meeting.
Yep.
And I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 9:54 AM.
Second,
Second, and Laura's gonna type in a yes in like 2 seconds. Okay, yes, she's in agreement, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
thank you.
Have a good day, everyone.